Hello, you man. Now, remember, just before the holiday, we read the opening to a Gothic horror story, The Red Room. A man, cynical and disbelieving of the stories of a violent ghost haunting a strange and mostly deserted mansion staffed by creepy and sinister servants, intends to spend the night in the infamous Red Room. The last man to take the challenge was found dead in the Red Room. The narrator of the story is a young Victorian gentleman. Now, he believes in science, he rejects religion, he rejects superstition, and he's determined to stay the night to prove that ghosts do not exist. This was a big issue in the Victorian times. The sinister servants try to unnerve the man and create tension by repeating "this night of all nights," referring of course to the anniversary of the death of the man who died in the room previously. The narrator decides to ignore the warnings and continue with his plan. He will spend the night in the Red Room. Listen to the next section of the story, or follow on Classroom if you like, as he travels through the abandoned mansion, heading towards the Red Room. Now, I want you to think about how the writer is creating tension here and the atmosphere through the description as the man nears closer and closer to the dreaded Red Room. Think about what we expect to find behind this door to the Red Room after this approach. So listen carefully. "And are you really going?" said the man, looking at me again for the third time with that queer, unnatural tilting of the face. "This night of all nights," whispered the old woman. "It is what I came for," I said, and I moved towards the door. As I did so, the old man with the shade rose and staggered round the table so as to be closer to the others and to the fire. At the door, I turned and looked at them and saw they were all close together, dark against the firelight, staring at me over their shoulders with an intense expression on their ancient faces. "Good night," I said, setting the door open. "It is your own choosing," said the man with the withered arm. I left the door wide open until the candle was well alight, and then I shut them in and walked down the chilly, echoing passage. It was long and shadowy, with a film of moisture glinting on the wall, as gaunt and cold as a thing that is dead and rigid. But with an effort, I sent such thoughts to the right about. The long, drafty subterranean passage was chilly and dusty, and my candle flared and made the shadows cower and quiver. The echoes rang up and down the spiral staircase, and a shadow came sweeping up after me, and another fled before me into the darkness overhead. I came to the wide landing and stopped there for a moment, listening to a rustling that I thought I heard creeping behind me, and then, satisfied of the absolute silence, pushed open the unwilling door and stood in the silent corridor. The effect was scarcely what I expected, for the moonlight coming in by the great window on the grand staircase picked out everything in vivid black shadow. Everything seemed in its proper position. The house might have been abandoned yesterday instead of 12 months ago. There were candles in the sockets of the sconces, and whatever dust had gathered on the carpets or upon the polished flooring was distributed so evenly as to be invisible in my candlelight. A waiting stillness was over everything. I was about to advance and stopped abruptly. A bronze statue stood upon the landing, hidden from me by a corner of the wall, but its shadow fell with marvellous distinctness upon the white panelling and gave me the impression of someone crouching to waylay me. The thing jumped upon my attention suddenly. I stood rigid for half a moment, perhaps. Then, with my hand in the pocket that held the revolver, I advanced. The door of the Red Room and the steps up to it were in a shadowy corner. I moved my candle from side to side in order to see clearly the nature of the recess into which I stood before opening the door. Here it was, thought I, that the man previously who attempted to stay a night in the Red Room was found. And the memory of that story gave me a sudden twinge of apprehension. I glanced over my shoulder and opened the door of the Red Room, rather hastily, with my face half turned to the pallid silence of the corridor. Now, we'll pause the story there and think about what that man finds behind the door. Use your imagination. The writers built up to this moment what is within the Red Room. The creepy servants, the shadows, the long corridors, the nervousness of the narrator, all have built up the sense of tension. Our tasks for this lesson are to build on this moment. First, I want you to look at the shared slides presentation on Classroom. Now, what I would like everybody to do is to think of an object, an item, a thing that could be inside this Red Room. Google a picture of it. It could be a candlestick, a doll's head, a piano. Copy it into a slide. Then you add that to the presentation, and then I would like you to write me 3 images, 1 simile, 1 metaphor, and 1 personification to describe that item, object, or thing that you have chosen. Look at the example slide that I've made in the slides presentation. Now, this will give us a class bank of imagery that you could use in the second task. Now, once you've completed that task, I would like you to write me the next bit of the story on the assignment document shared directly with you. Now, you don't need to write a huge amount. A detailed paragraph or 2 is more than enough. But I want you to continue with the next bit of the man's narration as you imagine it to be, in first person. And I want you to tell me what you see behind the red door when you first enter. Think about the senses. What could you smell, see, touch, hear? Use your imagination. What could be behind this dreaded door?